Now as we get more into the crank work, remember that generally I wouldn't put the crank in the bore like this. It's not time for it yet to fit in there. And these pictures are just to show, but there's something I want to point out. If you'll notice the small line right here on the crank, that's aluminum right there on the crank. This is your con rod, and these are your crank weights. Now, a good thing to do, I use the black marker for a couple of reasons. I use it to find my way around where I want to cut and not cut too much. And also I use it for what we call blocking. That's an old painter's phrase, but it works. It really works. Let's see if I can get this back. Now, we can see the bearing in one side right here, and the bearings also in this side. Now this is very important when you go to do your stroker engine setup. If you're not sure, the bearings have got to be seated right in the races underneath here and here. Now you'll notice that this is a little bit pulled out. That's what it looks like. That's because it's a dummy bearing and it's not in there real tight. But if you want to see if your bearings are lined up, these right here are the oil holes for your bearing. What happens is your fuel comes in with 40 to 51 oil. The fuel and the oil drop down on top of the bearing. And you can see that there is a spot halfway open where the fuel oil gets in behind the bearing and lubricates it. Now here's another trick too. If you'll notice all the bullshit in these are lessons I learned, hard fought lessons. Let's see. If you'll notice right here, this is the stud hole. It has aluminum and crap in it. It's going to have that. Okay, here's the other one over here. Now it's going to have aluminum and junk in there. What you need to do is take a Q-tip. Let me see if I got one. I got one right here. Have a bunch of these little Q-tip dealies. They work great. You put a little bit of oil on them. You stick them in here, and you get all the little pieces of stuff out of them. Let's see. Well, let's see. And also it works good on these right here, because you'll get little pieces of aluminum in there. You do not want to get any aluminum in this bottom bearing at all. I don't know how to take these cranks apart. That's one thing I've always looked at. I've never been able to find out how to do that. You don't want to get any down in there. You'll never get it out. And these also work for your holes right here. Now, with a stroker, if you're going to do 120 cc or 114 cc, you're going to cut right in here, very close to this hole. You might even breach it. And what you'll need to do is clean it out real well, because if you don't, any crap that you have in there, that when you go to put the bolt in, it's going to drop into the case if you've breached the hole. And you don't want that to happen with all the hard work you've already put in on that. And we have the oil hole here, and we have this is a piston all the way down. And these strokers do have a few problems that I've run into that I'll hopefully solve for you. and you won't have to deal with the catastrophic failure that I've gone through, because I just made one little tiny mistake, and sometimes a 10-cent part can ruin a $500 motor just because of neglect or a little bit of misinformation. You want to keep everything clean and smooth. You do not want to nick this area up here at all. This has got to be, this is machine flat here and here, and also along this edge of the case and the back edge right here. And here's the two sides. Oh, come on, come on, come on. And there's my dummy bearings. Now this right here can be plugged. Excuse me. This right here is what oils the oil pump. What happens is you get oil that goes down here, like I showed you before. It gets behind the bearing and oils that. But what happens is you also get the oil that comes down in the front of your engine, and it drops in here. It also oils the gear that's part of the oil pump. Like I said, you can leave the oil pump in there, but the one reason for the plug is to keep your case pressure up. The higher the case pressure, the better, more efficient the engine runs. Now, how high, I don't know. And there's where your starter goes right there. And as you can see, I've started to take off some of the meat right here. Let's see. Come on. No. Let's see. Damn thing. Hands are all fucked up and I can't work. It sucks getting old. We'll go to the next one. What the hell? Now I've started to work here on this one side, and then I'll work on the back. What I do is I take a little bit off and I check it. This edge right here will have to come off for a bigger crank. And remember, nothing can hit on anything. Nothing can hit. You need at least a millimeter clearance. Now what I'll do is I'll take off a little bit of this with my Dremel and I'll either use a Christmas tree carbide bit or a barrel carbide bit. They're $5 at any hardware store. Then what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll put some more lines of black in there. The reason I do this is so I can know exactly how much I'm cutting. Also, when you go to put your cylinder in here to test it, if you have any black in there and that black is disrupted, then you know that's a high spot on the cylinder, or I mean on the aluminum, and you're going to have to grind it down. And there's my dummy bearing. You can see it's these do have pieces of grit and crap in them. It's no problem because I don't use them for the motor. But if they get too much grit in them, you can just wash them off. But every time that you go to check the fit, and you may check the fit 50 times on your crank to make sure it works in this bore here, and then up here, you want to wash the parts really well before you put the brand new crank in there to test it, because you do not want to get any loose aluminum flakes in your new motor. Now here you can see how close this one comes to this bore hole on the side here, and this one, and you can also see right up here. I'll show you. You see all the crap and bullshit that's in there? Well, if you use your little Q-tips, I don't know what they call them in other countries, but that'll take all that out with a little bit of oil, and that's what you want to do. You want to, Q-tips are your friend. They work really well on that. And you can see all the junk that's in these holes. and all your bolts and everything will go they'll go in a lot better if you have everything clean. Now, what we have here is this motor was cut for 50 millimeter, and this is a 50 millimeter crank. It's your standard, to me, it's a standard stroker. If you use a 50 millimeter crank and I believe it's 50 millimeter piston, you come out with 98 cc's, something like that. But the bigger cylinders that fit in here have got to be custom fit, and that's where it takes a little bit of work. So I wouldn't recommend, if it's your first stroker motor, go 98 cc's, no higher, and practice cutting these cases by hand. If you don't have a good friend that's a machinist, or if you don't have like Dave Toba, Sir Dave Toba, to do it for you, and that guy, I'll tell you what, he makes my work look like total shit. The guy is just, it's artwork seeing some of his stuff. I mean, my hat's off to the man. This is where you do not want to get any aluminum flakes down in that bearing. That bearing is press fit right there. I don't know how to get it off or balance it. That's the one thing I've always wanted to learn. And here's the crank in again. Now, as you can see, like I stated before, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words. But you only need about a millimeter of clearance. Okay? Now you look at that and you go, oh man, this is unclear, whatever it is. Well, that's your this is the bottom of your conra, or I don't know what that is. But see, when I do the case in here, I'll put a little bit of black or chalk on the inside of the aluminum, and if there's a low spot or high spot, by turning the crank all the way around and then pulling the crankshaft off, I can see the high and low spots. So you only need about a millimeter. I know I'm slow, but I'm old and I really don't give a damn. Scarlet. And here's the bottom right here. Now all the way along here, from the very top all the way along here, there is no gasket. So what I use is a Moto GP, it's this gray Moto Seal, and that works really good. What I'll do is I'll put Moto Seal on this side and on the other side, and what I use, which works really well, I will use a Q-tip to get the Moto Seal just on here, just perfect, when I go to close the cases. As I'm closing the cases, after I close the case, I will put a line of Moto Seal on the very outside, and I do that for a couple of reasons. One, I want to make sure it's sealed, and two, if there is a leak, I will be able to look at that nice clean gray Moto Seal and see if there's a problem. It will tell me if there's a problem. And there we are again, and we have and it's Fongier, all this is from VT Cycles. So this is only part of my pictures. This is going to be a humongous video series, but I hope that with the pictures they can help you, and I hope some more people put some more pictures, you know, especially Hawaiians. They know more than I'll ever know. Okay, now we're going to the next one.